Look, listen, this will be up on YouTube afterwards, obviously streaming live on YouTube, TikTok, and IG. At the end of the day, I worked an overnight last night. I worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. on my birthday last night. And so I was asleep when Raheem Morris was hired. What great timing, of course, when I have to go to sleep at 8 a.m. and wake up at 1. I only slept what, 5 hours is that? Then I realized, oh my goodness, they actually hired Raheem Morris. What a great time. I wish I could have been sooner on the beat and able to report on it. Obviously, I made a TikTok video on that. If you haven't seen it, make sure you check that out. Look, Jim Schwartz would have been great. I don't think there's any doubt that Jim Schwartz would have been fantastic. But again, he had contractual obligations to the Browns that we don't know if he can get out of that, right? Like, we don't know. He claimed that he stormed out and he wasn't going to be back. But remember how hard it was for Kyle Shanahan to get out of his Browns contract? He had to come up with, I believe, that 32-page manifesto to get out of the contract. I mean, it would have just been, it wasn't feasible. And if they didn't get Raheem Morris now and they went all in on Jim Schwartz and then Jim Schwartz ended up staying with the Browns, then they would have been left with Gus Bradley. And thank goodness Gus the Fossil Bradley is not the DC. And I know I call him Gus the Fossil Bradley. Maybe that's mean. It's not because he's old. It's because his scheme is old. I mean, his scheme worked 15 years ago. You can't play the type of defense that he wants to play nowadays. Raheem Morris had just had a great year, being a defensive coordinator. James Pierce had a ton of sacks in Atlanta, right? Like, Jalen Walker was great. And the thing I like about him most and is his system. Xavier Watts had like what, 4 picks? Bowman had a few picks. They force interceptions. They force turnovers with his scheme. The Falcons defensively ranked pretty high. Let's look at it. NFL team defense rankings, right? Opponents points per game. Obviously, he can't handle a lot of that stuff, but Atlanta was middle of the pack there. Now, if we go to run defense, here, I'll share my screen so you guys can see this. I think it's a great hire. I think it's an excellent, excellent hire. Let's share that. All right, so we go to, I'm just looking this up real quick. Rushing defense, opponent rushing yards per game. Atlanta was close to the bottom. They were bad in that. So obviously not entirely his fault. He didn't have the personnel, right? Like, that's not Raheem Morris's fault. I'm not gonna be completely critical of that. He just didn't have the personnel. We saw McCaffrey go for like 400 yards against them in that game. But what you're gonna see is passing defense. Let's see. What passing yards per game? 12th. And they forced turnovers. If we go to forced turnovers and defensive metrics, he was really high on the list. So at the end of the day, I think that he had Atlanta in the right place. I think this is a great hire because he's never going to coach as a head coach in the foreseeable future, right? Like, it's already failed twice. Now, I don't think it was entirely his fault that it failed in Atlanta, right? Like, I think he did a really good job in Atlanta and he ended up winning the rest of his games. And what he did wasn't the one who drafted Michael Penix Jr. He wasn't the one that decided to bench Kirk Cousins and Kirk Cousins was winning toward the end of the year. It wasn't his fault, right? Like, he wasn't calling plays offensively either, right? That was Zach Robinson, former Rams OC. Obviously, the Cardinals hire Mike LaFleur, and that kind of puts the ball rolling for Raheem Morris to the 49ers, which was, I mean, it looks like agreed upon for a while, as long as he didn't get the head coaching job in Arizona. Because once the Mike LaFleur stuff came out, it was immediate 49ers DC. And Sean McVay probably hates this. I'm really excited to see how much the secondary can improve and evolve. Yeah, that is his bread and butter. That is his bread and butter. He's great at developing those secondary players. Obviously, had 2 of the best rookie ball hawk type of safeties in the league last year in Atlanta, and also helped James Pierce off the edge develop him a little bit right away. I mean, obviously, it's not a wide 9 scheme, so it's going to be a little bit different. I'm interested to see how he's going to use Michael when Michael comes off the ACL injury, but don't be shocked if they go and draft more tailored to Raheem Morris's scheme now. And what I mean by that is, don't be shocked if they end up taking a safety. That guy from Toledo, who's really good, had a great Senior Bowl. Don't be shocked if they take him pretty early. Don't be shocked if Dylan Dynaman's the pick at 27. Now, I don't think safety should be the pick, but just knowing kind of what Raheem wants to do. And, Mustafa has been really good at getting to the ball and hard hitting, but let's be real. Mustafa is not great in coverage, and we don't really have a coverage safety. So if there's a guy that Raheem needs for his scheme to work, getting a coverage safety, I can absolutely see them going safety round 1 or 2 now. And that kid from Toledo just kind of fits the 49ers type of build. And I'll make a whole separate video about that kid. I mean, he's rising up the charts. I see Daniel Jeremiah had him ranked 18th. I have first round grade on him. I think he's really good. Don't be shocked if Raheem Morris ends up going with the safety and telling Kyle, look, I need this safety because I had Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman, who we both drafted last year for the Atlanta Falcons, James Pierce in Atlanta, and that's how my system works. We need ball hawks at safety and at corner. Don't be shocked if they go safety or corner because of Raheem Morris's excellence in developing those players, right? Like it's no shock. And Jalen Ramsey's an all-time great, but it's no shock he had his best years, I feel like, on the Rams. That was the end of his prime, but it was kind of like, okay, that was his best. Aaron Donald, best. Now he had two all-time greats, and I know he's been criticized, and me in the past been critical. How hard is it to win a Super Bowl? Because he was the Rams DC when they won the Super Bowl with prime Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. But the fact of the matter is, they had a lot of guys on that defense that could not play football, and Raheem had him in the right place. And I know Rams fans got mad at him at times. Another thing that I think is super important to talk about is the respect he garners from players. Obviously, Salah has he is respected across the league and players love him. But Raheem Morris, more so than I feel like a Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is a tough bastard. Let's call a spade a spade. I love Jim Schwartz. The players, maybe they would have needed that. Maybe it would have made him tougher or whatever. But, he can bash heads with players similarly to Vic Fangio and what happened in Miami. Remember? Now, that was a stupid decision by Miami. Players didn't like him. They left, goes to Philly, and obviously there's been mixed results. He's obviously been a great DC, but not like the players don't love Vic Fangio. Half of them do, half of them don't. It kind of just depends on the player. Raheem Morris is universally liked as a rah-rah guy, a guy that can call defense, a guy that's very, very good. I think he's going to do wonders with the secondary, even more so than Steve Wilks did. And Steve Wilks gets a lot of flack, and I think Steve Wilks is obviously an idiot in terms of what he can do scheme-wise without personnel. And I think that was evident with the Jets this year. I mean, they didn't record a single interception. Aaron Glenn took him over to be the DC, and Niners fans, we knew about that, from a few years ago. But the one thing Steve Wilks did that I think was pivotal was Charvarius Ward had an all-pro season. Lenore, he was instrumental in his development. And I think there's parallels to Raheem in that sense. Obviously, better at developing edge rushers and developing pressure than Steve Wilks. Completely different schemes they run. But in the sense that Steve Wilks was a DB, Raheem Morris does wonders with DBs. I think that is going to be the clear thing for Raheem Morris. It's going to be developing Upton Stout, like you can see right here, Upton Stout breakout year. I think he already had it, but don't be shocked if they get D'Angelo Pons too, or if they get another corner in round 2 or 3, because that's going to be instrumental alongside Lenore. Renardo Green, I think, will obviously look better if they can get pressure on the quarterback. How many years they signed up to? I don't think that was disclosed unless I'm tripping. I only saw they signed him to a deal, but I mean, he's not going to be a head coach anytime soon. So let's look at the Raheem Morris deal. I'll make sure I'll double check with you right now. Because remember, I woke up at 1 p.m. today. I worked an overnight last night. So that's why I was late to this information. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, set to hire Raheem Morris. It doesn't really say that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it's kind of going to be a year-to-year thing because he's not going to get a head coaching position. So he's just going to be the DC for a long time. And I think that's what they needed. Like, the problem is with the Salahs, right? Salah was always going to be a head coaching candidate immediately after they hired him. So this was the year to try and win a Super Bowl if they were healthy because, okay, you have Salah for a year. But now you get Raheem Morris, who's really not going to be poached as a defensive coordinator, at least to be the head coach of another team in the foreseeable future. There were 11 openings, right? Or 10 openings. Maybe it was 9. This offseason, there's not going to be nearly as many next offseason. So you get to keep him for 2 years. And then guess what? If you keep him for 2 years and then if he somehow gets a third opportunity to be a head coach, then you get a draft pick. You get a third round pick, right? So that's the worst that could possibly happen. I think he could become the Steve Spagnuolo to Kyle Shanahan. I think they work. He's wanted him as his DC forever. Obviously, it was with Sean McVay, won a Super Bowl for the Rams. We don't need to talk about the Rams winning a Super Bowl. The Jarsky Tart dropped interception. I can't believe they had him back in a game, by the way, Tart, this past year. If I were the 49ers, I would never allow that guy back. I don't care. I'm petty like that. Like, you drop the game-winning interception to go to the Super Bowl, you're not fucking coming back ever. That's a whole separate conversation, but obviously Raheem Morris is a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. Can they get AJ Terrell? I mean, I think he's obviously going to bring in some guys. There's no doubt about that, right? It depends who he's going to bring in. Terrell is definitely a guy they can look at. Who knows what the Falcons are going to do? They don't have much draft compensation, so I can see them moving off of some of their defensive players and sending them to the 49ers maybe for a pick or something like that, so they can package picks to move up. Because remember, they don't have a first round pick. The Rams have their first round pick, and they obviously have a need. It seems like at quarterback with Michael Penix's injuries. Who knows if he's going to be healthy by the start of the season? Kirk Cousins got released. That's another topic. He's probably going to be a 49er and join Raheem Morris on the 49ers as the backup to Brock Purdy. I would assume that's probably, because Kyle Shanahan has always had an affinity for Kirk Cousins. So I can see him coming back with Raheem. AJ Terrell is interesting. Obviously, Xavier Watts, like the guys on rookie contracts are not coming, but don't be shocked if like in a year, like once McCaffrey is kind of, starting to go downhill, don't be shocked. I'm not saying the Falcons would trade him, but don't be shocked if the 49ers, because he loves Raheem Morris so much, don't be shocked if they go and get Bijan Robinson. And I say that with complete realization that Bijan Robinson is the best running back in football right now. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think they can do something similar to what they did with the Panthers with Christian McCaffrey, especially if the Falcons are losing. Like if they lose again next year and the year after, I think the 49ers could convince the Falcons to send Bijan Robinson for a first and a second and a third or something. Because McCaffrey, remember, they graded that as a C+, but they didn't even have to give up a first round pick for McCaffrey at the time. I think that Bijan Robinson's kind of the perfect player to replace McCaffrey. And I know that might sound delusional and whatever, but if the Falcons keep losing, they're going to have to trade players, especially if they don't want to pay Bijan Robinson to be one of the highest paid running backs in the league because in a few years, because they have to build the rest of the roster and they don't have a quarterback and they're not winning. So I could see that in a few years. That's a separate conversation. But I know for a fact that Raheem Morris and Bijan Robinson were super close. Same with Kirk Cousins. It wasn't really Raheem's fault that they went to Michael Penix. That was kind of an inevitable conclusion based on Cousins' play last year, but Cousins obviously came back. Raheem loves him. So yeah, let's see. I already showed that. Could you see him using Nick Barton? Absolutely. I mean, it depends. Nick Barton was a solid pick. So, I mean, it's entirely possible Nick Martin gets cut. I wouldn't say next year because the 49ers are going to try and, save money. But I could absolutely see Nick Martin not being a 49er in a few years because that was more of a solid pick. Let's see here. Mesidor, Omar Cooper, Emmanuel McNeil Warren in the draft class, please. That's the guy I'm talking about, the Toledo safety. Don't be shocked. This is a good point, John. If the 49ers select Emmanuel McNeil Warren at 27th overall because of, like I mentioned earlier on in the stream, Raheem Morris's affinity for safeties that are ball hawks and just really good. I mean, look at what Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman did for him last year as rookies. I think they combined for 6 interceptions. Really, 6 interceptions. I really do. So, I mean, I think I wouldn't be opposed to the safety at 27 because you're getting BPA, you're getting best player available probably at that point. Let's say Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, both off the board. I would think it would be between these 3 guys here. Mesidor, I don't care that he's fucking 25. I don't really give a shit. He can play football at a high level. I think we need to stop caring about age. Tyler Shuck got passed on for the Saints bazillion times because he's 26 years old. And he's a pretty good quarterback. Better than Shador, it looks like right now. Obviously, he's further along in his development. Could be better than Jackson Dart. But people passed on him until the second round because of his age. Now, the Saints made a good pick there. But I'm just saying I don't really care about age, especially Mesidor, because you got to think about Mesidor too. The positive is you get a guy in his prime on a rookie contract because he's going to be 25 to 28 on his rookie. So that's basically his physical prime. And you don't have to pay him that second contract until he's 28 if it inevitably gets there. So I think that's not a bad pick, especially since the Niners are kind of in win now mode. They claim it's like a retool, but let's be real. They're a few pieces away and staying healthy from competing for a Super Bowl again. I don't think it takes a genius to figure that out. But it's also a weird situation where they don't have enough depth where if something goes wrong, they could win 6 games next year. So again, they're in a weird scenario. I just want guys that can play football. So those are 3 really good players. Omar Cooper, I think, is going to be gone by 27. Call me crazy. I know people have been mocking Omar Cooper in round two. This dude's the perfect NFL receiver. Yards after catch can be utilized in the backfield, in the slot, in outside. I mean, he catches everything. I think he's going to go in the top 25 personally. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes above Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion, truly. And I'm a little bit worried about Casey Concepcion. I know Niners fans are obsessed with him, including my boy Maj, but like he can't fucking catch the football. Go look at his tape. He is incredible at creating separation. He's incredible, with the ball in his hands if he can somehow catch it. But he has stone hands. I mean, that's a problem if you ask me. I don't know. That's why I'm a little bit concerned if they go wide receiver there, especially since Kyle doesn't play wide receivers. I'd much rather go defense for Raheem Morris now. So because he's going to play those guys right away in the first round. Or O line. Hopefully, Kyle would play a really good O lineman if someone falls to them there. But I could definitely see that safety there. I think we got a legit shot to get Pitts. I think so too. We know Pitts loves Raheem Morris. They have a good relationship. I just don't see the Niners, with Kittle. I don't think they would spend the money for Pitts, considering the lack of depth we have because of the Trey Lance trade. Obviously, it's caught up to us. They just don't have much depth at any position group, really, except maybe corner. I think they have more depth at corner than people think because I like Renardo Green as long as there's a pass rush, right? Like if they can get pressure on the quarterback, Renardo Green will inevitably look better. Same thing with Marquise Single. If you ask him to play coverage in the secondary, I know he had a bad year. And obviously Lenoir and Stout are fantastic, right? So like I'm not as concerned about that position group. Edge rushers, we have no depth. Keon White's good. DT, I mean, we got to bank on the second year guys, Alfred Collins, CJ West. They don't really have any other DTs that are high end, right? Edge rusher, Michael is going to be injured. He's going to be coming off of a major injury. He probably doesn't look the same next year. Same with Nick Bosa. Bosa might, because he's a generational talent, so he might actually look great right away. But yeah, I mean, they just have a lack of depth at position group. So I just don't think they would spend the money on Pitts or Linderbaum for that matter. I know Niners fans want Linderbaum, and that would be perfect, but I just don't think they're going to spend a lot of their budget and their whatever it is. Sorry, bless me. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of their budget on one or two players. I think it's going to be more spread out. I think you're going to see something like Boy Mafa as a depth edge rusher, and then maybe a guard, like Elijah Vera Tucker. You know what I mean? Like I could see that. Those two guys headlining the free agent class and then kind of the draft. Then Kyle Pitts. I could also see Romeo Dobbs, like a receiver. I could absolutely see that. I think Jennings is gone. I hope he's gone. I agree with you here. Cooper is better than Concepcion. You missed the first portion of the show. Do the pieces we have on defense fit the defense Morris runs? I mean, theoretically, yes. I think they can fit that. Michael it's going to be interesting how he uses Michael, right? Because Michael was drafted specifically for the wide nine scheme, big bodied edge rusher, can't really rush the passer yet, but he's a great run defender. That doesn't really fit with Raheem. He really needs pass rush juice on that edge, guys that can get to the quarterback. So don't be shocked if they draft an edge in round one. But I think they have pretty much all of the players they need, except an extra edge rusher, maybe an extra DT. And of course, they're absolutely with the Raheem Morris hire. I can guarantee you they take a safety pretty early, whether it's McNeil Warren, whether it's Steineman, whether I like Bishop Fitzgerald from SC. I went to SC, so obviously I'm a little biased, but he had a 91.1 PFF coverage grade. They obviously need a coverage safety alongside Mustafa. That would help immensely because they don't have a coverage safety right now. And I think they've excelled when they have guys who can be spread out. One guy could play nickel, two great man-to-man corners. Obviously, when they had Charvarius Ward and Lenoir could kind of not be used as that CB1. They could draft a corner pretty early. I wouldn't throw that out of the equation. I think that's what Raheem's going to want. But he's obviously going to want an edge rusher too. Keon White is an underrated player. I agree. I like Keon White. I do. I think he's really good. I just don't think he's good when there's no A+ pass rusher. Keon White is going to look really good alongside Nick Bosa and Michael Williams next year. He just wasn't like absolutely like he was fine. He was good for what they got for him. I think he has a ton of upside, But remember, no one's going to look good with that when you don't have Nick Bosa and Michael next to you. Like when you don't have pass rushers. Like Bryce Huff was just neutralized the entire year once those guys went out. But Bryce Huff is incredible next to Nick Bosa. That's kind of how it goes, right? Um, you're a Ducks fan. You like the Toledo safety ball better than Dylan. Yeah, I like Dylan. I just don't think Dylan's a first round pick. I think the Toledo safety is. So I would be cool with Dylan in the second round. I would be obviously, and it would be incredible to get the McNeil Warren in round 2, but McNeil Warren's going round 1. And at this point, I was previously opposed to getting a safety in round 1 because I just think the O line is a position group of need. They need a guard desperately. Hopefully, they can do that by signing Elijah Vera Tucker. I think that's going to be their big signing, by the way. I'm predicting it right now. I do think that they will spend money and it will be Elijah Vera Tucker, 4 years, $50 million to replace Spencer Burford. And I think it's going to be a great signing because then you have Pooney, Elijah Vera Tucker, McKivitz. Say what you want about him. Best offensive lineman contract in the league. He's not incredible. He's also not bad, and he's cheap. Trent Williams, they need his replacement, but Trent says he's going to play a few more years, so it's not completely opposed. And I think they're going to keep Brendel just because he knows Cal's system. Don't ask. I know we all dislike Brendel. You can ask Kyle Shanahan why he loves that guy so much. He loves centers that know his system. But don't be shocked if they draft a center to replace him this year, but he doesn't play right away, that he plays in 2027. Right now, I'm not completely opposed to the safety at 27 because Raheem needs another ball hawk safety in this secondary, which they just don't have. They don't have a Cooper DeJean. They don't have a guy like that. Like Lenore's great in coverage, right? Like he's been great all year. Stout, great in coverage. Mustafa, horrible at coverage. Great at hard hitting and getting to the ball and forcing big plays and sacking the quarterback. But he's kind of like a discount Hufanga, right? Like Hufanga was never incredible in coverage. I think we can all agree there. Like he got cooked a lot, was out of place a little bit, but was great at forcing turnovers and was great at getting to the ball and stopping the run and tackling players. I think that's Mustafa's bread and butter. They saw obviously the parallels to Talanoa Hufanga when they drafted him. And Hufanga's an all-pro. I'm not saying Mustafa's going to be an all-pro, but like I do like Mustafa still. I know 49ers fans, a lot of you guys probably didn't like the way Mustafa played. I mean, obviously he's going to look like shit when you ask him to be a coverage safety and he can't cover shit to save his life. They need a coverage safety desperately. So again, I wouldn't be opposed to taking a safety now in round 1, considering Raheem Morris has done wonders with safeties. Yeah, I like Renardo Green, man. He had a bad year, but again, Renardo Green will look better with the pass rush. Remember how great he was as a rookie when they could actually get pressure on the quarterback? You remember that? That wasn't that long ago. I know he was getting cooked a little bit this year. He had some big games. But I mean, when you don't get pressure on the quarterback, guys are going to get cooked, especially when you're not going to throw Lenore's way. So you're just going to throw Stout and Renardo Green's way and Luter. Gosh, if Luter's back, there's no point. No, I'm kidding. Luter's no way he's going to be back. There's no way. Luter has got to be the worst player that gets snaps in the NFL. 100%. Like he's got to be. Like I don't think there's a corner that's worse than Luter in the NFL that actually gets snaps. I mean, he literally came in for one play and Jackson Smith-Njigba automatic touchdown in that Seattle game. Like he was fucking terrible all year to the point where I was like, I know Chase Lucas was dealing with some injuries. I want to put somebody out there. Shit. I would have put Nick Martin at corner at that point over Darrell Luter. I don't care if he's slow. Put him at corner, see what he can do. I know he never played the position, probably better than Luter. I mean, I hate to say it. Maybe he's a great guy. Get him off my fucking football team, please. And I say that with all due respect. Like, I cannot stand to watch Darrell Luter out there. Please get him off the football team. And then a lot of it's going to be drafting for Raheem's scheme. I think the main point and the main takeaway is like they need a safety. They need another corner. I think you're going to see 2 guys get drafted in that secondary in this 49ers draft class. I also think that John Lynch is finally going to address O-line, and I think it's going to come in the form of Elijah Vera Tucker at guard, and I think they're going to draft a center and they're going to draft a tackle pretty early. I don't know if it's going to be round 1. I don't think they draft a defensive tackle. I think what you're going to see in the draft based on the Raheem Morris signing is you're going to see, like I mentioned, a safety and a corner drafted pretty early. You're going to see an offensive lineman to back up Trent Williams drafted relatively early. And you're going to see an edge rusher drafted relatively early in those top four round picks, right? You're not going to see a defensive tackle. You're not going to see In my opinion, I don't think they're gonna draft a wide receiver pretty early, unless Cooper's on the board there or they like Chris Bell enough in round 2. I the Kenyon Sadiq stuff, we can throw that out the window. They're not drafting a tight end. They're gonna roll with Jake Tonjes until George Kittle's back. They're not gonna go running back. I honestly think this is the draft where they don't go running back at all. I think they're gonna sign a running back. I don't think it's gonna be Ken Walker or Breece Hall. Don't you heard it from here first. You heard it here from me first. Don't be shocked if Travis Etienne is a 49er to complement Christian, to kind of lighten the load on Christian McCaffrey. Now I know they're kind of similar, both, good route runners, but Etienne's really underrated running through the tackles. I think he's going to be cheaper than Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker personally. Don't be shocked if that's a guy that they go get. Or they bring B-Rob back, but Jordan James is going to see a lot of work next year. So I think this is the year they actually don't draft a running back at all, just because of how many needs they have in their secondary and obviously on their O-line and at receiver. But I also think receiver can get figured out in free agency. I think if they get Alec Pierce, then they're not drafting a receiver, early at least. If they sign Romeo Dobbs, they're obviously not going to draft a receiver in round 1. Kyle's not going to use that receiver anyways. So I like Zion Young at edge rusher. I know John's like, we need an edge round 1. I'd be cool with the safety from Toledo. I love Zion Young. I don't know if Zion Young is the perfect fit alongside Raheem Morris, but he would have been the perfect fit alongside Robert Saleh because he's kind of like Michael with more pass rush upside, less run defending. Um, he's a big bodied edge. We know the Niners love big bodied edges. I think he's really good. Romello Height's another guy I could see because he's a little slimmer, but he kind of fits the pass rush juice that Raheem Morris wants. A guy that's strictly a pass rusher, not going to play the first down plays, but a guy that's going to be out there and getting pressure. He reminds me a lot of a skinnier Bryce Huff. Yeah, they'll find an undrafted free agent running back. I agree, 100%. You'd really like to see Jordan James on the field. He looked decent in garbage time against Seattle. Yeah, I like Jordan James. I mean, we know how Kyle is with rookies and on offense and stuff, but I think that he's going to have to be utilized and relied upon a ton. Anyways, I'm going to run, y'all. I got to eat some food. I just woke up a little bit ago because I worked an overnight last night. But if you haven't seen this whole thing, make sure you sub to my YouTube if you're watching on TikTok and watch it on YouTube. It's going to be up right now. If you're on TikTok, make sure you go sub to my YouTube and vice versa. If you're on YouTube, make sure you go check out my TikTok, my video on Raheem Morris that I posted about an hour ago. And I love all you guys. Bang, bang, Niner game, baby.